Hey guys, cute anime girl here, and it's been a few days since my weapons video on Xiao, and since then I have done a shit ton of research about how I could make it better. I unlisted that video because although what I said was technically right, it's not really right. It's one of those cases where I didn't say anything wrong, but I could have said better things. For example, I said that Crescent Pike is not good for Xiao because he doesn't get to utilize the physical damage bonus. This is true, but I also totally underestimated how OP the passive is. I'll explain later, but for now, don't craft a Grudge, and don't buy a Royal Spear. And if you did buy a Royal Spear, don't buy more than one. This video is going to be in-depth and it's going to have a lot of math. So, in case you guys get bored, I'll be putting timestamps in the description, and I'll be putting something else so you guys don't get bored that easily. Before we get started, I want to teach you guys about a general rule for building a DPS, and that's crit rate and crit damage. Everyone in Genshin has a base crit rate of 5% and a base crit damage of 50%. You probably heard about the 1 to 2 ratio. This basically means that for every 1% crit rate, you should have 2% crit damage. For example, if you have 50% crit rate, you should have 100% crit damage. So, going back to the base crit rate and crit damage, according to this ratio, this means that because you already have 50% crit damage, you should first start off by increasing your crit rate to 25%, so the ratio is 1 to 2. Keep in mind that this is just the ideal. You don't need to exactly match it, but get as close as possible. For every build in this video, I'm going to go with 2-piece Viridescent and 2-piece Gladiator. I'm also going to assume that you need energy recharge because his ult costs 80 energy, and without any energy recharge, you won't be ulting as much. But if you somehow manage to get his ult up consistently without needing to build energy recharge, which I highly doubt, go switch all the energy recharge with percent attack. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about his free-to-play options. Crescent Pike. This one really gave me a hard time because like everyone else, a lot of people thought that Pike is not that good because you can't utilize the physical bonus damage. And that's true, but it's not completely bad because you still have the passive. That passive on the Pike really is OP and it really does carry the weapon. It's basically an extra hit that does 20% of your attack. Xiao does 8 hits in a full combo, and Pike procs on every hit, which means you actually hit 16 times, but 8 of those hits are 20 to 40% of your attack, depending on refinements. It also has one of the highest base attack for a 4-star at 497. This is totally worth it despite the physical damage bonus which doesn't work in his ult. Now, onto the builds. There's going to be 3 builds. The first build is for weapons that give critical rate on their passive or secondary stat, so Deathmatch or Royal Spear. For this, go percent energy recharge, percent anemo damage, and percent crit damage. This puts you at 112.2% crit damage. This means that you need to have a critical rate of 56.1%. So, try to get as close to this number as possible. Deathmatch gives you 36.8% crit rate at max level, which means you only need 19.3% crit rate on your sub-rolls. Keep in mind that a Refinement 1 Deathmatch will literally have no attack going this build because it has one of the lowest base attack for a 4-star. I recommend you get more copies or replace the energy recharge with percent attack, but then you are going to have trouble with recharging your ultimate. Refinement 3 should be okay, 4 is good, and 5 is ideal. This is going to be my final opinion on Royal, but you should probably get Black Cliff or Deathmatch over this. If you already have a Royal, leave it at R1. It's still a really good weapon with one of the highest attack for a 4-star. The passive on Royal alone is not enough to carry it, so work on crit sub-rolls. 20% should be good enough. Xiao can stack it pretty fast because he is a spear user and spears are fast hitting weapons. Now onto the second build. This build is going to be for weapons that give crit damage as their secondary stat. So think Black Cliff, go energy recharge, anemo damage, and crit rate. Black Cliff gives 55.1% crit damage at max level, which puts you at 105 crit damage. This means you need 52.5% crit rate. You already got 32.1% crit rate from your artifact, which means you only need an extra 20.4% crit rate on your sub rolls. Keep in mind that Blackcliff has this problem where it's really hard to get stacks in a boss fight or tanky mobs that take really long to kill. Even without the bonus attack, it's still a really good choice thanks to the crit damage. Now onto the last build. This is for weapons that don't give crit chance or crit damage on their sub rolls or passive. Go energy recharge, anemo damage, crit damage, or crit rate. This one is really tricky. Going crit damage puts you at 112.2% crit damage, which means you need 56.1% crit rate on your sub rolls. If you do ever make this possible, you will do way more damage than a crit rate circlet. The problem is, you need 56.1% crit rate on your sub rolls, so yeah, good luck with that. Now, going crit rate gives you 32.1%, which means you need 64.2% crit damage. This is really easy to build because you only need 14.2% crit damage on your sub rolls. You can also increase this amount by increasing your crit rate sub rolls and crit damage sub rolls as well. But it does perform worse than the crit damage circlet build, assuming that it has a 1:2 ratio, and that's really hard. So I recommend going crit rate circlet first, and then you work towards the crit damage gear as you get near endgame. So, to summarize, here are some extra things that are worth mentioning when going their respective builds. The weapon that does the best with the least refinement is Royal, with Blackcliff coming in a close second. The weapon that scales the hardest is Blackcliff at max refinement and max stacks. Honestly, this doesn't seem that feasible. An R5 deathmatch beats Blackcliff when it comes to boss fights because Blackcliff is not going to have stacks. Royal is good at R1 but gets outscaled when you compare it to other weapons with refinements. Go Blackcliff or deathmatch so you can scale better when you have more copies. Pike is surprisingly better than I thought despite having an unusable secondary stat for Xiao during his ultimate. Grudge is not that good, but there's still hope for this weapon and I'm not gonna give up on it just yet. If you go full energy recharge with an artifact, I wonder if the high ultimate uptime comes close to the other weapon in DPS because you are guaranteed to be in your ultimate more often than the other weapons. And your ultimate boosts your stat up by a lot. So, despite having the worst DPS for a 4-star weapon by itself, it changes when you add in Xiao's ultimate. You might hit less during your ultimate, but you ult more. Will that extra ultimate carry the weapon's low DPS? We have to test it out, but I'm excited to see the potential. Anyway, sorry for the long video. I really wanted to correct my mistake on the last video because I don't want to spread bad advice. Thankfully, Xiao is still months away, so you have plenty of time to prepare. I hope this video gave you insight on how to better build your DPS properly, and if anything, your artifacts is way more important than the weapon itself. And if I miss anything, or if I said something wrong again, feel free to correct me. I'm fairly confident that everything I said in this video is accurate enough. So with that, I'll see you guys later. Bye!